Hi, folks. Welcome to my SQL Bits talk today. Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about easy DBA tools migrations. So first things first, this is me. My name's Jess Pomfret. My pronouns are she and her. The most important stuff on this slide is my contact details. If you want to talk about DBA tools or PowerShell or anything, find me on Twitter, use my email address, get in contact after the session. Would be great to chat. I am a data platform architect for Data Masterminds, and I'm an open source contributor. I really enjoy contributing to DBA tools and DBA checks, and I've written a couple of resources for the SQL Server DSC module. Passionate about SQL Server, PowerShell, and proper football, which is perfect because we're in London. We all know what proper football is. So just a quick intro to DBA tools for anyone who is not familiar. DBA Tools is an open source PowerShell module. I like to describe it as a command line management studio. So anything you can do in Management Studio to manage your SQL servers, you can pretty much do from the command line with DBA Tools. The nice thing is it makes it a lot easier for handling multiples. So multiple servers, we can connect to multiple SQL instances at once. We can handle multiple databases, change settings, create multiple logins, all that stuff. Easy with DBA Tools. It is MIT licensed, which is super important because it means you can pretty much use it for anything you need. You just have to keep the copyright and license notices intact. The other thing that I like to talk about with DBA tools is security. Now, this is only a 20-minute session, and we could talk about how DBA tools is secure and the things we do to try and make it as secure as possible for a long time. I highly recommend that blog post. dbatools.io/secure. It goes into really great details of all the reasons that DBA Tools is an enterprise grade module and how we try to make it as secure and robust as possible. A quick history about DBA Tools. It was created by Chrissy Lemaire to migrate SharePoint instances. If you've ever dealt with SharePoint on SQL Server, you'll know there's a lot of things that get created, right? Databases, logins, link servers, agent jobs, all kinds of things that need to be moved from one instance to another. She started sharing this script with people, and they were like, man, that'd be really useful. I would love to use that. And they convinced her to put it on GitHub as a PowerShell module. And the first commit was in September of 2015. June 2019, the 1.0 launch happened at Data Grillen in Germany over some delicious breakfast foods. And that was a really big kind of landmark point for DBA tools. That we went into a lot of hard work went into standardizing names, parameters, adding command-based help to make it as easy to use as possible, and adding pester tests to make sure that any new contributions didn't break any existing functionality. So that was a really great release, and there have been a lot of releases since then. This slide is already out of date. We're now on 1.1.76 at least. I saw that go to the PowerShell gallery. And there are 654 commands available in the module at this point. I also just want to mention if you're interested in the book, there is a Learn DBA Tools in a Month of Lunches that is coming out this year. Similar to the SQL Server 2022 announcement this morning, it will be coming out some point 2022. We're really excited about it, and it is in the final stages. That code will get you 35% off if you haven't already purchased the book. That's all I've got for slides. We're going to hop into a dev container in VS Code. If you want to grab that dev container and all of the code and demos, it's available on my GitHub link. I will share that again after the session. So first things first, let's talk about getting started with DBA tools. We're going to talk about how we get that module, where we can go to download it, how we get it installed. We're going to look at some of the commands available. We're going to talk about command-based help, which is just a really great thing about PowerShell in general. And then we'll quickly cover splatting, which is just how we're going to view our code today in our demos. So I mentioned DBA tools and the PowerShell gallery. New releases of DBA tools are pushed to the PowerShell gallery, and you can use install-module with the module name DBA tools to go to the gallery, get the latest version, and pull it down to your local machine. Obviously, you need internet access for that. If you need to install it on a machine that doesn't have internet access, you can use save-module DBA tools and pass in a path. So in this case, I'm putting it in my temp folder. I can then copy that module from wherever I was able to download it to the machine I might want to run it from, perhaps a jump box in a more secure environment. If I did install the module from the PowerShell gallery using install module, I can use update module to keep it up to date. That's pretty important. We release new modules to DBA tools almost daily still at this point. So being able to keep it up to date is also really important. Once we've got the latest module installed and ready to go, we can use import-module DBA tools to just pull it into our local session. That means all of those commands are ready to use. If I use get-module, I can see the version that I've imported is 1.1.75. I can also use the list available parameter on that command to say what other versions are available on the box. You can see there's another one. To find available commands. Now, one of the things I love about PowerShell, and this is not just DBA tools, this is all of PowerShell, is it loves to teach you how to use things. So we have get-command, we can pass in the module, and it will show us all of the commands that we have available. Now there's a lot, right? How on earth are we going to find the commands that we need to do whatever it is we want to do? Well, first of all, we can pass in a pattern, so something to do with compression. This is going to find wherever compression is in the name of the command. So we've got get, we've got set, and we've got test. That was PowerShell level. You can use that for any module. But the DBA tools team have added find DBA command. And if you pass a pattern into that, you'll see that you get a lot more results. Now this command will go through not just the name of the function, but also all of the help within the function. So anywhere that compression is mentioned, that will be returned here. And you can see backup DBA database is one of them. To start with, that seems a bit weird, but if you read the help, you'll see that it handles backup compression. So it is relevant when we're searching for things to do with compression. You can also look for other things like author of Pomfret. So these are all of the functions that I started. Now, I'm not showing you that to be like, wow, look at all these things I wrote, because the commands that I wrote and shared with DBA tools were like the very first version of these, and now they're a lot better. So for example, the backup and restore of DBA DB certificate, the scripts I had did exactly what I needed, right? And they were pretty good, they were pretty reliable, so I contributed them to the module. But since then, other people have come along and they've got more use cases, more things to add in, and those functions are so much better than the version that I had that I was using beforehand. And that's really the power of this open source idea, right? If I share my code, someone will come along and make it better, and now we both have the best possible version. It's pretty awesome. So now we've worked out which command we're going to use, we need to know how we use it. And get-help has to be the most valuable PowerShell command you'll learn. If you pass in a function name to that, it will go through and pull out the command base help for you. You'll get the name, a bit of a synopsis, information about the parameters, and a description. If you do show window, which works really nicely on Windows, I mentioned we're running in a dev container here. It will pop up a separate console window that you can keep open and work through. As you work through in the console, you can keep that open. You can also take a look at the help online. So if I open this up, you can see that all of the command-based help is passed open and saved to the docs.dbatools.io website. This is all available in our PowerShell console, but it's just easier to read on the website as well. You can see that there are a bunch of examples for us to use. A quick chat about splatting. So the rest of my code in this example, in this demo, is going to use splatting to make it easier to read. This command, get DBA DB compression, passing in a SQL instance and a database, and I'm saying get me the first 5. There aren't many parameters in this, but if I had to add any more, it's going to go off the screen and it's going to become hard to read. So splatting just makes it easier for us. Instead, we create a hash table with the parameter names on the left and the values on the right, and then we pass that into our function. So in this case, we're getting the exact same output. It's just a little easier to read on the screen. All right, we're here to talk about migrations. So let's talk about a simple database migration. As I mentioned in the slides, DBA tools really started from doing PowerShell migrations or database migrations. There are a ton of copy commands available to move databases and logins, which we'll look at today, but also to move link servers, credentials, central management servers, all kinds of things can be moved. So we'll take a look at the available copy commands. We'll then migrate our databases and our logins and talk about how we can also upgrade them. Again, get dash command. We can pass in the verb of copy to see all of the copy commands. Copy DBA SP configure to copy your SP configurations over from one instance to another. Endpoints, logins, audit stuff. You can even copy table data from one instance to another, or from the same instance with that one. I recommend running this command, going through and seeing all the things that you can move from one instance to another, because it makes life a lot easier. So let's talk about databases. Here I've got get DBA database. I'll move that down a little bit. Hopefully we can see. Here is my splat, my hash table. I'm looking at the SQL instance of DBA tools 1. I'm excluding system databases and I'm using out variables. This is just going to save the output that you see on screen into that DB's variable. It makes it really easy for us to both see the output down here in the console window and also use it later on. And that's a common parameter. It can be used on any PowerShell command. That's really nice. So I'm running get DBA database, and I'm basically saying, tell me about my databases on DBA tools 1. And you can see I've got 2. I've got the Northwind database and the pubs database. I can do the same kind of thing with get DBA login to view all of the logins on the DBA tools 1 instance. You can see I've got some SQL logins, I've got some groups, I've got some Windows users. This will pull back all that information, and you can see this JSP login, which is what we're going to focus on migrating today. Now, when we do a database migration, we're going to want to make sure that our application is down and it's ready to move our database from one instance to another. So let's use get DBA process and just make sure that nothing's connected to our database. You can see nothing was returned, so we're good to go. If some people were connected, Management Studio weren't finished doing whatever, we could kill those processes by piping get DBA process to stop DBA process. And this pipe, it's worth talking about the pipeline for a second. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the output from get DBA process and push it along the pipeline, into the next command. So stop DBA process. So basically get DBA process, and I've specified what kind of processes, and then push them through and kill them off. All right, so let's migrate our databases. Here again, I've got a splat with the source, DBA tools 1. The destination, we're going to go to DBA tools 2. My databases, remember I saved the database names or the database objects into the DB's variable. I'm going to grab the name from that. I'm specifying the backup restore method. There are a couple of options with this command, so I recommend using get help and reviewing that documentation. For backup restore, we need a shared path. That's a path that both instance accounts have access to. Obviously, the source has to be able to back up to that folder, and the destination has to be able to restore from it. I've got verbose turned on, which just means tell me more about what's going on. You can see all of the yellow commands rushing through at the bottom. And what that's doing is it's just copying, backing up and restoring databases from one instance to another. If I show you Management Studio, this is what it looked like before. I had my DBA Tools 1 instance, 2 databases, DBA Tools 2, no instances. If I refresh this, you'll see that my databases have been copied to DBA 2. Pretty cool. I also need to migrate my logins, and I'll use a similar process for that. Copy DBA login, source, destination, and in this case, I'm specifying just one login name. It's a lot easier to do the logins because it's just going to script it out, including the SID, including the password, and run that script on the destination. Obviously, with databases, we've got all that data to move. As those databases get bigger, it's going to take longer, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now that we've migrated our instance or our databases, we're going to want to set the databases on the source offline. So I'm using set DBA DB state for that, passing in the SQL instance, the database, and offline to true. I can then check the compatibility level using get DBA DB compatibility. You can see the databases I just migrated are actually 130, but my system databases on that instance are 150. Compat splat is just a hash table, so I can add additional values to that. So I'm going to update the compatibility level for the pubs database to 150, and I run that with set DBA DB compatibility. You can see that the results have come back down here. It's a little hard to see, sorry. Previous compatibility 130, now we're at 150. Now I mentioned the power of open source beforehand, and that is that we can do simple database, we can lean on the power and the knowledge of our community. So MVP has written this blog post on all of the things you should do when you upgrade your database. And we can run all that with invoke DBA upgrade. Oh, let's put in the right database name. That's why that's not doing anything.
Hey, Jess, we're at 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. So now you can see all of those commands have come back successful and we've upgraded our database. All right, in the last 5 minutes, we want to talk about how this will actually happen in the real world. What if our databases are bigger than that? What if we need more time or our backup restore is going to take more time than the downtime window? I'm just going to run through a couple of commands to reset my instances. I am removing the databases on the destination, bringing them back online on the source. And now I'm going to start another window and I'm going to run an application. Once this comes back, basically the goal of this demo is that we are going to make sure that our application, that our databases can be staged ahead of time before the downtime. So again, I'm going to use the same copy-dba database command. The only difference here, let's change back to my right window. The only difference here is no recovery is going to be set to true because I'm going to leave the database ready to receive more restores, and no copy will be set to true. Sorry, no copy only. We need to be aware this is going to break our restore chain, but we all understand that we now need to manage those LSNs. So my database has been restored from one instance to another and left in no recovery mode. Let's check my date time for when that backup was taken. So it was taken at 13:56:18. Whenever that is before our downtime window, all of the activity that's happening on our database is still happening on our source database, right? So we need to go ahead once we get to the downtime window, collect those changes and move those over to our destination as well. So downtime window starts. The application team goes off and kills off the application. We're ready to collect those changes and migrate them. Let's use get DBA process. No one's connected. That's good. That means the application is down. I can use invoke DBA query to just run a SQL query. I'm just saying how many orders have we got in the orders table and when was the last one? 157. That's important because it's after our full backup. So now we're going to do a backup database. We're going to do a differential backup into that shared folder from DBA Tools 1. I'm going to again set my databases offline on DBA Tools 1 so my application can't reconnect to the old databases. At the current time, I've got pubs offline on MS SQL 1 and restoring on MS SQL 2. So let's go ahead and restore the database or restore the differential to DBA Tools 2, taking those changed the things that have changed since the full backup and applying them. I'm using the continue switch. So I'm saying, I know there's already a full done, apply this differential on top. Let's check our databases again. You can see on our source database is now offline and our destination is normal. Let's check our data. Let's make that a little bigger. You can see that I've got 33 orders and the latest one is from 157. Now those invoke DBA queries, I had piped those and used the out variable as I ran it. So you can see that on the source, we ended with 33 orders and we've got 33 orders on our destination. So that is how you can use a couple of different methods for DBA tools to get our databases there. Obviously, the backup restore method is the easiest, but we understand that isn't always possible in a production environment when your databases are bigger. Some resources, if you're like, wow, that was pretty cool, I would like to know more about DBA tools, highly recommend the blog. The first link will actually take you to the Manning website to buy the DBA tools in a month of lunches book. The second one is that security blog that I mentioned. Highly recommend that if you want to use that in your enterprise. It's going to give you a lot of leverage of why it's secure and why it's okay to use. The docs that we talked about all came out of the command-based help. Really valuable stuff there. And if you want to get in contact with the DBA tools team, I recommend GitHub, Slack, or Twitter for further discussions. If you want to get in contact with me, find me on Twitter, find my email address, send me some questions. All right, finally, I would really love some feedback on this session. I know it was a whistle-stop tour of migrations with DBA tools, but your feedback is much appreciated. If there are questions, I realize we have 1 minute left for them. I will head over to the spatial online area if we want to hang out, and I'll answer some questions there for the next 30 minutes or so.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming.
Jess.
Welcome.
And we're done.
Perfect. Thank you, folks. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of Bits. Sorry I'm not there in person to enjoy it with you.
That's all right. We still get to see your bright, shiny face.
Perfect.